Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Zubaidah binti Kamaludin, and today I will be presenting our topic. But firstly, I would like you to guess what is our topic for today. So I would like you to look at these two pictures, and then you will know exactly what is our topic. So those two pictures actually entail sexual harassment in various forms that are faced by different people every day. Many people know and have heard of sexual harassment, but do you really know what does sexual harassment mean? I'll firstly define the word sexual. So the word sexual means relating to instincts, physiological processes, and activities connected with physical attraction or intimate physical contact between individuals. The word sexual is actually an adjective, and it describes the nature of the relationship that two people have. Whether the relationship is existent or non-existent, and whether the relationship actually involves any physical contact or physical attraction. It entails that the feelings or the activities or how the body reacts towards a person is in a sexual way. So, what is harassment? Harassment is defined by the dictionary as aggressive pressure or intimidation. Harassment can be a physical form or verbal form. So it means that you intimidate a person, whether by touching them with force or you intimidate them by using your words. So now that we know the meaning of sexual and harassment, but do you really know what does sexual harassment mean overall? Sexual harassment is defined as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sex favor, and other verbal or physical conduct of sexual nature. Sexual harassment can include many things such as actual or attempted rape or sexual assault, unwanted pressure for sexual favors, or unwanted deliberate touching, unwanted sexual looks or gestures, unwanted letters in sexual nature, phone calls, even dirty jokes in your daily conversation can be considered as sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can happen anywhere, be it in public or in your workplace. The most common one that we hear nowadays are sexual harassment in workplace and also in public. In public, it includes things such as catcalling women. Women mostly do not feel comfortable being catcalled by men because they feel that men only see them in a sexual way but do not value them as a person. And in workplace, it usually involves a superior and also an employee. So in our topic, we'll also have to relate sexual harassment to power. Power here means the authority that is given or delegated to a person or a body. So, why do we say that sexual harassment is related to power? Because when a person has power over someone else, they feel that they can get away with anything. They can get away without having to face the consequences. And the most common thing that they can get away with is in sexual harassment. Because in sexual harassment, it doesn't usually have any proof because sometimes it doesn't involve rape, but it simply involves verbal sexual harassment. That's why we say that a person with power can get away with sexual harassment simply because they do not have the proof and they have the power to do anything to erase if they have proof against them. The power that we talk about in sexual harassment is power in relationships. The power that another person has over another person, which means if person A is more dominant than person B, that means person A has power over person B. The one that is more dominant in a relationship tends to do bad things to the other person. They include sexual harassments and manipulations, and at the end of the day, it will hurt the other person in the relationship. Having power makes them feel that they can do anything towards the other person because now the other person is scared of them. Now let's move on to the others to find out more discussion on this topic.
Aiman, and for my part, I will be talking about situations of sexual harassment. So, what are the situations of sexual harassment, or what does sexual harassment look like? It can occur in many circumstances, and it can happen anywhere, like at work, in public, at school, or in the university, around your friends, at home, and even in public transport. It can also happen at any time of the day, as no one can expect it coming. The harasser does not necessarily come from one gender, but in most reported cases, the victims were female. The harasser could either be your boss, your colleagues, a teacher, a lecturer, a friend, or even when you are married, your partner. Some forms of sexual harassment include making conditions of employment or advancement dependent on sexual favors, either explicitly or implicitly, and then physical acts of sexual assaults, requests for sexual favors, verbal harassment or of a sexual nature, unwanted touching or physical contact, unwelcome sexual advances, discussing sexual relations or fantasies at inappropriate places, like in the workplace, feeling pressure to engage with someone sexually, exposing oneself or performing sexual acts on oneself, like flashing, and unwanted sexually explicit photos, emails, or text messages. Sexual harassments are the situations of sexual harassment are basically anything that is deemed inappropriately sexual, or anything that is done or given to a person without their consent. Now, let's move on to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Yasmeen Suraya, and I'll be presenting on the impacts of sexual harassment. I'll be dividing the impacts into two categories, one to the victim and the other one to the company. In the workplace, sexual harassment can create an environment that makes it harder for employees to succeed. One of the impacts that can be seen is emotional and physical issues. Victims of sexual harassment often suffer from emotional and psychological harm, including stress, depression, and anxiety. They may experience decreased confidence and self-esteem. Physical health problems may arise, such as loss of sleep and appetite, weight fluctuations, nausea, and headache. Next, sexual harassment can also lead to professional and financial problems. Sexual harassment can wreak havoc to a victim's job performance and career trajectory. This is because the fear and loss of confidence the victim feels can cause them to withdraw from society and disengage from the co-workers. If victims report their harassment, they may also suffer from advancement setbacks, such as being passed over for a promotion, or being left out of meetings, or even being labeled as the troublemaker in the organization. Financial problems include loss of wages and unpaid leaves are possible too for the victim. I have mentioned before, this issue will affect everyone, and this includes also the company. Firstly, it can destroy an organization because of decreased productivity. When a workplace is infected with harassment and discrimination, everyone suffers from the hostility of this environment, because this can lead to absenteeism, low morale, and also lower job satisfaction for the employees. This will indirectly cause them to decrease their productivity, and this will destroy the organization. victims and witnesses of the harassment are more likely to quit, and this causes a high employee turnover, and related hiring and training costs will also increase for the company. Toxic environment may also make top talent recruitment difficult for the company because workers may no longer want to work for the company, and this will undermine the business. Besides that, a company is also at risk of lawsuits and loss of public credibility. When a company fails to adequately prevent and handle sexual harassment in their organization, it can result in expensive lawsuits. And also, a highly publicized sexual harassment can also damage a company's reputation, resulting in loss of business. This is because when credibility is gone, the business is no longer trusted by clients, customers, and colleagues. Hence, they will leave the business because they are astounded by the company's questionable practices and consider alternative goods and brands that suit their needs. That is all from me. Thank you, and I will pass on to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day everyone. I am Nur Syafiqah binti Mohd Paris, and I'll be explaining on how to prevent yourself from being sexually harassed in the workplace. I'll be dividing this subtopic into two categories. First, what employees should do to prevent themselves from being sexually harassed in the workplace, and secondly, what the employees should do to prevent their employees from being sexually harassed at work. Firstly, for the employees, you should be able to say no clearly and firmly. If you ever feel uncomfortable or violated because of your colleagues' words or actions, do not be afraid to say no and tell them to act accordingly in a professional manner. Note that refusal from victim is an important condition to constitute sexual harassment, and that statement can be an important evidence in the litigation later. Secondly, document every incident in detail and keep all the evidence. Gather all inappropriate instances, including text messages, phone calls, or even sexual remarks you received from the harasser. It is very important if you want to make a report or even filing a lawsuit in the future. Thirdly, you can lodge a complaint to the HR department. Nowadays, most companies have policies and instructions on how to report sexual harassment at work. This is because they prefer to solve the issues internally to protect the company's image. In some cases, you will be directed to the HR department or to the supervisors or even to the higher-ups to settle this matter. However, if the third option is not available or applicable to you, in a case where although multiple reports have been made but no responses were received, or the person you should be saying is the one who harassed you, then you may want to consider the fourth option, that is to make a police report and file a lawsuit. That's why it is very important to keep all the related evidence for later use. These preventions are not limited to your colleagues only. In fact, if you've ever encountered any sexual harassment made by your managers, board of directors, or even those in power, do not be afraid to come forward and call them out, because we all know that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it is our responsibility to ensure that these people do not misuse their power. Next, what you as an employer can do to prevent sexual harassment at work. First, you should establish an anti-harassment policy in the workplace. In your employee handbook, you should clearly define sexual harassment as well as procedures for making reports, and to ensure that the company will not retaliate against those who complain about being sexually harassed at work. Secondly, train your employees about sexual harassment. It is highly encouraged for the training to be made compulsory for every employee. This is meant to give focus on certain issues that some employees might not consider as sexual harassment, but they actually are. By conducting a mandatory training, it indirectly tells the employees that the company actually takes the matter very seriously. Lastly, respond to all complaints. Employers should review all the reports made by the employees regularly before further investigation is made. If one is found guilty, then strict action shall be taken to maintain a secure and safe workplace.
In conclusion, sexual harassment is a very serious case that should not be taken lightly. As we can see, the impacts of sexual harassment can be very severe to some of the victims. It is important that everyone stays united in fighting sexual harassment to provide a better and safer place for women and everyone of all genders in a workplace and in the society.